Hey everyone, welcome to Radian and degree measure. What we're going to show you today is we're going to show you how to convert from degree to radian and how to convert from radian to degree. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at a couple of important concepts here. So what I want you to understand here is that both radian and degrees are two ways we can measure an angle. Okay, so that's what they are. They are angle measures. There's just two different ways. Okay, the key thing here is that a radian is the measure of the central angle that is determined by an arc length whose length is the same as the radius of a circle. Now, this I put in red because we're going to do this in class. It's not a super challenging concept, but in general, what they're saying here is that if you have this angle, okay, we can draw any circle. Okay, just draw a circle, and here's the radius of our circle. Okay, let's say this is R. Okay, now if our central angle, if we do this, okay, and I'll try to measure this, if this length is equal to this, that's a radian. So if we pick up this piece and lay it out here, and if this length and this length, okay, are the same, that is 1 radian. Okay, and we're going to do an activity in class and talk about that. So that's what that red thing is really just stating. Okay, so what are the skills that you're going to have to know here? Well, you're going to have to know the conversion factors to convert from radian to degrees and vice versa without a calculator, and apply properties of the unit circle without a calculator. And the two things you need when converting to degrees, you need to multiply whatever radian you have by 180 degrees over pi. And when converting to radian, you have to multiply your degree by pi over 180 degrees. So these are the two things that we're going to use. It'll be challenging because sometimes they'll get them mixed up. I like to think about whatever you're looking for is in the numerator. And so if you want the degree is up here. If you want radians, pi is on top here. Okay, so these are the skills. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about this unit circle. Okay, and so I've drawn a unit circle, and what we want to know, or what we need to really say here, is that the radius is 1. So we're going to go ahead and draw some things on here and just kind of help us with some common things here. Excuse me. So if this is a unit circle with radius 1, this value becomes 1, 0. This becomes 0, 1. This becomes -1, 0, and 0, -1, because these are each a radius to the boundary of the circle. Okay, when we talk about a circle, if we go all the way around one time, that is 360 degrees. Okay, so we know that one time around is 360 degrees. So if we think about the circumference of a circle, the circumference is equal to 2 pi times the radius. In this case, the radius is, hopefully you can guess it, it's 1. Okay, so the circumference, one time around, is 2 pi. So there's our first big relationship. Okay, we know that 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi. Okay, so if we go once around, we can say that's 2 pi. We also know if we divide by 2, halfway around is equal to pi. Divide each side by 2, so halfway around is pi radians, 180 degrees. If we divide by 2 again, we get 90 degrees, and that's equal to pi over 2. So from here up, we get pi over 2. And now you have some conversions. Okay, 180 degrees converted to radians is pi. 90 degrees converted to radians is pi over 2. And guess what? If you wanted halfway between again, you could say, well, half of 90 is 45 degrees, and that's equal to pi over 4 radians. Okay, so that angle measure is 45 degrees or pi over 4. So right away, just by using the unit circle, you can see some of the conversions that we have. Okay, but how can we use the formula to help us? So let's go ahead and look. So I've gone ahead and let's look. We're going to convert the following angles from degree to radians. That's right, these are all angle measures. And we're not going to use a calculator here. So when I look at 30 degrees, okay, I'm going to rewrite here. I'm going to say, okay, I've got 30 degrees, okay, times, remember from earlier, I want radians, so I'm going to multiply by pi over 180 degrees. Okay, now it just becomes a matter of simplification. So 60 goes into itself once, or excuse me, 30 goes into itself once, 30 goes into 180 degrees 6 times, so I simplify, and I have 1 times pi, which is pi, over 6. So in radians, 30 degrees is equivalent to pi over 6. Now if we look at 60 degrees, we're going to go ahead and write 60 degrees times, hopefully you're going to use it, it's pi over 180. So pi over 180 degrees. Okay, and now you cross multiply, you simplify if you can. I write it over 1. 60 goes into itself once, 60 goes into 180 3 times. So we have 1 times pi, which is pi, over pi times 3, which is 3. So 60 degrees is equivalent to pi over 3. Now these are going to be key values on the unit circle. Now we're going to look at one more example. We have 135 degrees times, okay, and we're going to use the same thing, pi over 180 degrees. Okay, now this one's a little more challenging because you got to think, well, what goes into both 135 and 180? 5 does, but 45 also does. 45 goes into 135 3 times, and 45 goes into 180 4 times. So this becomes 3 times pi over 4. So that is equivalent. 135 degrees is equivalent to 3 pi over 4 radians. Okay, so that's an example of converting degrees to radians. Now let's go the other way. Okay, let's look at a few examples where we're going to convert from radians to degrees. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and write 7 pi over 2. So I'll go ahead and 7 pi over 2. Now this is where it changes. Instead of pi over 180 degrees, we want degree. So whatever I want is in the numerator. I have 180 degrees over pi radians. Now, the pi's will become 1, right? 2 goes into itself once, 2 goes into 180 degrees 90 times. So now we're left with 7 times 90, which is 630 degrees. So 7 pi over 2 radians is 630 degrees. Second example, negative 13 pi over 6. So we're going to have negative 13 pi over 6 times, and we're going to convert that. We're going to use 180 degrees over pi because that's what I want. I want degrees, so degrees is in the numerator. So I know that pi will become 1 with itself. 6 goes into itself once, 6 goes into 180 30 times. Okay, so this looks like we're going to have negative 390 degrees, I believe. Negative 13 times 13. And our last example, 4 pi over 9. So 4 pi over 9. And you're going to go ahead and multiply that by 180 degrees over pi again. Okay, again, same thing every single time here when I'm converting from radians to degrees. So pi's become 1. 9 goes into itself once. 9 goes into 180 degrees 20 times. 20 times 4 is 80 degrees. So 4 pi over 9 is 80 degrees. So I hopefully have explained to you how we can convert from radians to degrees and degrees to radians. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. You can type them below. We'll see you next time.